Sofia Coppola writes and directs films that are usually about young women who find themselves drifting aimlessly, yet also feeling trapped. The home can be a prison, marriage can be a prison, and even status and privilege can be a prison. Her films are soft and pretty, dreamlike and airy, and they convey loneliness and ennui in a way that is absolutely iconic. As of January 2021, Coppola has released 7 feature films, not counting the Bill Murray Christmas special because, So today I'm going to rank them by how much I subjectively enjoyed what each had to offer. Let's get this show on the road with number 7, On the Rocks. I think this is gradually becoming the consensus among Coppola fans. On the Rocks is her most underwhelming film. I don't think it's a bad movie. Rather, it's just bland, and possibly by design. On the Rocks follows Laura, played by Rashida Jones, as she gradually becomes more and more suspicious that her husband is having an affair. Most of the film is spent on conversations between Laura and her father, conveyed through this slow and casual demeanor of the always lovely Bill Murray. The film has some pretty city shots and some moody Mexican views. While parts of the dialogue and acting can come across as stilted by Coppola standards, the father-daughter dynamic on display here sometimes shines and is the film's strong point. I think it's just okay. Number 6, The Beguiled. Colin Farrell plays a wounded Union soldier who, in the midst of the American Civil War, is taken in by a family of Confederate women, as played by such talented actresses as Nicole Kidman, Kirsten Dunst, and Elle Fanning. This is Coppola's second historical piece, and between the candlelit darkness inside the house and the sweltering fog and constant insect drone outside, the atmosphere is ripe and ready for steamy sexual tension. And by steamy sexual tension, I'm referring to the push and pull attraction of these isolated Confederate women and a wounded soldier who seems to realize that his best, possibly only chance of survival is to appeal to each of these ladies individually. This is the only film of Coppola's so far that's a remake of another film. And in what I think is a really regrettable move, Coppola chose in her adaptation to replace the prominent black slave woman character with one of her regulars, Kirsten Dunst. The Beguiled is by no means a bad film, but Coppola's choice here to erase a black character from a narrative about life during the Civil War is questionable at best. Number 5, Lost in Translation. I am well aware that this is a hot take, but genuinely this is how I really feel. Lost in Translation remains Coppola's most popular film, and do not get me wrong, it totally makes sense why. Bill Murray plays this washed-up actor in a troubled marriage. One could even say the marriage is on the rocks. Who finds a spark of life in a chance meeting with a young, newly married woman played by Scarlett Johansson. This is one of Coppola's most beautiful and iconic films visually. I was looking for screen caps to use in the background for this film, and there's so many lovely shots. The feeling of ennui expressed here is relatable, both in the form of a young woman experiencing it and a man facing his midlife crisis. But some of the choices here are questionable as well, and really take me out of the film. The famous opening shot of Lost in Translation lingers for a prolonged period of time on ScarJo's butt in partially see-through underwear. It's a memorable opening, and to be honest, I wouldn't really have a problem with it if it wasn't for the fact that ScarJo was 17 at the time. But what I think is much worse is the treatment of Japan and how Japanese people are depicted. The humor of Bill Murray's character often relies on the same tired jokes that turn the Japanese characters, or if you even call them characters, into obstacles or just punchlines of jokes. The film makes the joke about L's and R's getting mixed up like 5 times, which comes across at the very least uncreative and uninspired, if not a bit ignorant. Number 4, The Bling Ring. Coppola's most divisive film is smack in the middle of my list. In this A24 venture, a group of girls, including one played by Emma Watson, and a boy begin to steal clothing and jewelry from the homes of wealthy celebrities. The Bling Ring is based on real history, and Coppola's handling of the topic is at once ironic and self-aware of the stupidity and superficiality of what the kids are doing, but also, at the same time, sympathetic to the teens themselves. The harsh lighting, the generic teen dialogue, and slightly off acting have been points of criticism against the Bling Ring, but I think it works for the most part and gives the movie a really unique vibe. The Bling Ring's most enthusiastic fans will celebrate the film's bizarre and iconic moments, such as Emma Watson proclaiming, seemingly without a trace of joking in her voice, the expression, "I want to rob." The themes here boil down to the superficiality of celebrity status and the pursuit of materialism for teen validation. There's something to be said for how little the robbery actually seems to affect the celebrities. This movie is mostly a rinse, lather, repeat situation where the teens rob Paris Hilton, then go to a party, sell some of the stuff and then stash the rest, and then go back to rob Paris Hilton again. Just keeps looping. And the fact that the rich, like Paris Hilton, don't even realize they're being robbed for so long into the movie, there's a point being made. And even if it's not groundbreaking, still a point made well. Number 3, Somewhere. 4 years after Coppola's large and extravagant Marie Antoinette, Somewhere is a small-scale film with a slow but deliberate pace. Stephen Dorff plays Johnny Marco, an actor more in his prime than Bill Murray in Lost in Translation, but just as confused about his empty life. The one thing that seems to give his life any happiness or purpose is his relationship with his daughter, played by a young Elle Fanning. I think this might be Coppola's most underrated film. Like, it's not particularly disliked or controversial. I don't really hear people talking about it at all. And I think that's honestly kind of a shame. This is Coppola focusing almost exclusively on a male character, which is rather unusual for her filmography. And there's quite a bit to dissect here in terms of thematic imagery too. There's these scenes of women dancing and performing for men, fancy cars and accelerated cycles, the uncomfortable weight of masks and aging makeup, and underwater communication between best friends. There's a lot to like. Number 2, Marie Antoinette. If I was ranking which Sofia Coppola film I think is the most important to her filmography, this would be number 1. Through her lead, Kirsten Dunst, Coppola presents us with a sympathetic approach to Marie Antoinette, in this case portrayed as a young woman who did not understand the injustice of the world around her because there was no way she could have. Someone who would go on to be strawmanned and maligned in the public eye because of the workings of institutions that predated her, stuck within a status quo she had no real power over. Sofia Coppola's films have been derided as vapid, all style over substance. And she's been said to be a filmmaker who only knows how to make films about herself, who only can make films that reflect her own life of privilege. I really enjoy Coppola's films, but that doesn't mean I don't see some of the truth in these statements. It's just that I tend to view them as positives rather than negatives. Sure, Marie Antoinette is all style, but in this case, the style is the substance. From the anachronistic post-punk soundtrack to the gratuitous and gaudy luxury of the Palace of Versailles, there's an artificiality here that I think really works. Coppola herself was a woman born into privilege, not of a ruling class per se, but of a Hollywood elite. She is someone who, after The Godfather Part 3, was pinned down in the public eye as the very image of nepotism. Through Kirsten Dunst in this film, a film that, weirdly enough, is almost like an allegory for Coppola's own public life, Coppola could express herself in Marie Antoinette. And in redeeming France's privileged martyr, perhaps Coppola could find redemption in the public eye as well. Number 1, The Virgin Suicides. My favorite Sofia Coppola film is her first feature-length film, The Virgin Suicides. A group of boys narrate their memories of a formative time in their lives when they were captivated by and obsessed over a family of sisters who lived nearby. This is a film about restrictive homes and controlling parents. The dreams boys have of girls versus the real lives of girls who feel a deep loneliness, and how everyday objects can become imbued with temporary memories. There's so much I want to praise about this movie, but I have to hold back, mainly because you might be someone watching this who hasn't seen the movie. I don't want to spoil it for you, but also because this video would be at least a half hour long if I didn't restrain myself. I really think Coppola struck gold with her first film. Her screenplay is densely packed with intriguing themes and characters that are subtly deep as icebergs, and she brought the original novel to life by imbuing her film with dreamy imagery, dark humor, and poignant lines of narration. While I think Marie Antoinette is the most important Coppola film, in terms of what it says about her as a person and a filmmaker, The Virgin Suicides is easily my favorite, and it's the kind of movie that I can enthusiastically recommend in general to pretty much anyone. It's a great first Coppola film. And that about wraps up my ranking of Sofia Coppola's films, but what do you think? Which Sofia Coppola films really resonated with you? I'm curious. Please share your thoughts in the comments. And I'll see you next time, because right now, I want to rob.